The night was bitter cold, the kind that bites through coats and creeps into your bones. Snow slammed against the windows of a small, weather-beaten house on the outskirts of Fairview, Montana. Inside, Monica Harris, a single mother of two, sat by a flickering fireplace, wrapping her daughter's hands in an old blanket. The heater had broken days ago, but they made do, like they always did. Monica worked double shifts at a local diner and still barely scraped by. She was proud, though. She didn't owe anyone anything. Life had taught her to rely on no one but herself and faith. That faith was tested when the sound of roaring engines broke through the storm. At first, Monica thought she was imagining it, but then, headlights. Dozens of them. She stepped onto her porch, pulling her coat tight. In the blinding snow, a convoy of motorcycles crawled down the desolate road, headlights cutting through the blizzard like ghostly eyes. They stopped right in front of her yard. Her instinct screamed danger. 25 men, most in leather jackets and patches that read Steel Vultures MC, climbed off their bikes, shaking the snow from their helmets. Tattoos, beards, steel chains, the kind of men polite society crossed the street to avoid. The leader, a tall man with icy blue eyes and a scar along his cheek, stepped forward. "Mum," he said, voice gravelly, "we don't mean trouble. The highway's closed and our engines are freezing solid. We need shelter. Just for the night." Monica's heart pounded. 25 bikers, her children inside, no neighbors for miles. Every headline she'd ever read about motorcycle gangs flashed through her mind. She hesitated. I don't have much room," she stammered. The man nodded respectfully. "We'll sleep on the floor. Barn, garage, anywhere dry, just—" "Not out here. It's 20 below, and we've already lost one engine." Behind him, she saw their faces, red from the cold, exhausted and desperate. Not monsters, just men freezing in a storm. Something stirred in her chest. Against every instinct of fear, Monica opened the door wider. "All right, you can stay in the living room, but no funny business." A few men exchanged surprised glances, as if they weren't used to kindness. "Yes, ma'am," the leader said. Within minutes, her home was filled with heavy boots, steaming breath, and the smell of wet leather. Her kids peeked nervously from the stairs. Monica set out pots of soup, cracked open canned beans, and offered blankets. The bikers, some with tattoos of skulls and wings, sat quietly, almost respectfully. One even helped her fix the fireplace with his pocket tool set. Another offered to shovel her walkway at dawn. As the hours passed, fear melted into strange warmth. They talked about their travels, the veterans' missions, the families they'd left behind, and Monica, for the first time in a long while, felt like her house was alive. By midnight, the snow outside was relentless, burying the road entirely. The storm howled, but inside there was laughter, clinking mugs, and the crackle of a strong fire. When she finally went to bed, Monica whispered a prayer, "Lord, keep us safe tonight, all of us." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant thunder, or maybe more engines approaching from the horizon. She didn't know it yet, but her single act of compassion that night was about to shake the entire biker world and change her life forever. Monica woke to a strange silence, the kind that follows chaos. The storm had finally passed. Sunlight filtered weakly through frosted windows, bouncing off the sea of sleeping bikers sprawled across her living room. Leather jackets hung over chairs, helmets lined up neatly by the door. It looked surreal, like a scene from a forgotten movie. She tiptoed through the maze of bodies, careful not to wake anyone. Her youngest, Lily, sat on the stairs watching them with sleepy curiosity. "Mom," she whispered. "Are they bad guys?" Monica smiled faintly. "No, baby, just cold ones." She moved to the kitchen, set coffee to brew, and began making pancakes out of the last bit of flour she had. She didn't even know why, maybe because it felt right. Within minutes, the scent of coffee and butter stirred life among the men. One by one they rose, stretching sore backs and murmuring polite thanks. Despite their intimidating looks, they helped fold blankets, tidy up, and even chop wood to keep the fire going. The leader, the scarred man from last night, approached her quietly. "You didn't have to do all this," he said, glancing at the stack of pancakes. "I know," she replied, flipping another one. "But you needed it." He smiled, a rare, genuine one that softened his hardened features. "Name's Rex Dalton. We owe you, Miss Harris." Monica waved him off. "Just call me Monica." "And you don't owe me a thing," Rex chuckled. "That's where you're wrong." Before she could respond, a rumble began in the distance, low and deep, like rolling thunder. The sound grew louder by the second. Monica turned toward the window, her hand freezing mid-air. Down the long stretch of snow-covered road, hundreds of motorcycles appeared. The horizon shimmered with sunlight bouncing off chrome. The sound shook the windows, growing louder, deeper, heavier, until it wasn't just hundreds, it was thousands. The men inside the house rushed outside, disbelief etched on their faces. Rex stepped out too, shielding his eyes from the glare. "No way," he muttered. "It can't be." Within minutes, the road and fields around Monica's home were filled. Bikers everywhere. Jackets with skulls, flames and angel wings. Red patches. Black patches. And one massive banner leading the charge, Hell's Angels. Monica's knees went weak. "What's happening?" she whispered. Rex stared in awe. "Word travels fast in our world. They heard what you did. You opened your door to us when no one else would." Engines idled, filling the air with vibrations. Then silence. Thousands of riders dismounted, forming a vast circle around her small yard. Snow crunched under boots. A huge man with a white beard and sunglasses stepped forward, his jacket marked President, Hell's Angels Midwest, the kind of figure most people saw only in news reports. He approached Monica slowly, with hundreds watching. "You the lady who took in my brothers last night?" he asked, his voice carrying over the frozen air. Monica swallowed hard, clutching her coat tighter. "Yes, sir. They were freezing. I just did what anyone should have done." The man nodded, eyes softening. "Anyone? You're the first in a long time who treated us like human beings." He turned to the roaring crowd behind him and raised his arm. "Brothers, this woman showed mercy when the world turned its back." A thunderous cheer erupted. The sound rolled across the valley like a wave. Monica's kids peeked from the window, their eyes wide in wonder. Then, as the noise quieted, the man looked back at her. "We don't forget kindness. Not ever." Before she could ask what he meant, he gestured to the bikers. They began unloading something from their bikes, boxes, tools, fuel cans and supplies. "Miss Harris," Rex said softly beside her, "you're about to see what loyalty looks like." The sound of boots crunching against the snow filled the air as the 1,500 bikers moved with synchronized precision. It looked like an army of leather and chrome. Monica stood frozen on her porch, clutching Lily's hand, still not quite believing this was real. Rex stepped forward, scanning the horizon. "That's the whole Midwest Charter," he muttered. "They came from 5 states." Monica blinked in disbelief. "All. For what? Because I made soup and gave blankets?" Rex smirked. "In our world, that's a miracle, ma'am." Within minutes, the massive crowd broke into teams. Some headed toward her driveway, others toward her roof. The sound of hammers, saws, and laughter filled the morning air. Monica's neighbor from a mile away peeked out from his window in utter shock. "What are they doing?" she asked Rex. He smiled. "Fixing what's broken." The bikers had noticed her cracked roof, her broken gutters, her frozen pipes, and the dented door barely hanging on its hinges. One group unloaded lumber and roofing sheets. Another began repairing her broken heater with parts they had scavenged from their bikes. A dozen more brought crates, food, fuel, and even toys for the kids. Tears welled in Monica's eyes. "You don't have to do this," a biker interrupted, grinning under his beard. "Ma'am, we want to—" It was chaos, but the good kind. Men who looked like outlaws worked like angels. The rumble of engines turned into a symphony of drills, saws, and laughter. Some cooked in portable grills, serving breakfast to everyone. Others played with Monica's kids, showing them helmets and letting them sit on their bikes. Monica stood by her porch, overwhelmed. For years, she had faced judgment, whispers from churchgoers, neighbors who pitied or looked down on her. A black single mom raising 2 kids in a white rural town wasn't easy. She'd fought every day to prove she was enough. But now, for the first time, people were showing up for her. Rex approached again, holding a steaming mug of coffee. "You've been alone too long, haven't you?" Monica nodded faintly. "You get used to it." "Well," he said with a soft grin, "get unused to it." The Hells Angels president approached next, flanked by 2 lieutenants. He took off his gloves, extended a rough, scarred hand. "Name's Brick Dalton, Rex's older brother. You gave my boys warmth when nobody else would, so we're paying it forward." Monica shook his hand, her fingers trembling. I don't understand why me, Brick's voice deepened. Because nobody ever does. You didn't ask who they were before you helped. That kind of heart, rare these days. He turned to his men and shouted, No one leaves until this lady's house shines like new. A cheer erupted again. By noon, the transformation was unbelievable. The sagging porch stood reinforced. The roof gleamed with new shingles. The broken heater hummed steadily inside. Her kids played in the snow, giggling as bikers built them a snow fort. Monica couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Rex placed a gentle hand on her arm. You gave us shelter, Monica. We're giving you home. The simplicity of his words broke something open in her. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a struggling mom, not as someone surviving, but as someone worthy. As the sun began to set, the air filled with music from portable speakers. Bikers danced, laughed, and grilled food over open flames. The whole valley came alive with the sound of gratitude and brotherhood. Monica whispered to herself, This can't be real. But it was, and it was just the beginning. By the next morning, the quiet Montana Valley wasn't quiet anymore. News trucks lined the frozen road, their satellite dishes aimed skyward. Drones buzzed overhead, capturing the sight of hundreds of bikers surrounding a small farmhouse, working, laughing, protecting. What had started as one woman's act of kindness had exploded online overnight. Someone had filmed the moment 1,500 Hells Angels arrived at Monica's doorstep and uploaded it to social media. Within hours, it went viral. The headline read, Single black mom shelters 25 freezing bikers, wakes up to 1,000 angels. Reporters swarmed the edge of her property, shouting questions over the sound of revving engines. Monica, how did it happen? Were you scared? What message do you want to send to America? Monica stood by her fence, wrapped in a borrowed leather jacket that dwarfed her small frame. She looked exhausted but peaceful, her eyes reflecting both disbelief and grace. I didn't do it for attention, she told them calmly. They were cold, that's all. Rex stood beside her, arms crossed, scanning the crowd. These reporters smell a story, he muttered, but they'll never understand it. Still, the story grew. By afternoon, local deputies arrived, uncertain of what to make of the sight of hundreds of outlaw bikers fixing up a stranger's house. Sheriff Daniels, a stocky man with a wary look, stepped out of his cruiser. Ma'am, are you all right? You're not being held against your will, are you? He asked, hand hovering over his holster. The bikers laughed, but not mockingly. Monica smiled softly. Sheriff, these men fixed my roof, my heater, and my soul. I think I'm safer here than I've been in years. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Well, all right then. He turned to Rex. You boys keep it peaceful. Rex grinned. Always do. The sheriff left soon after, shaking his head in disbelief. But not everyone was celebrating. Online, comments poured in, some praising Monica as a hero, others questioning her sanity. Who lets in bikers like that? This must be staged. No way they're Hell's Angels. Monica tried to ignore it, but it hurt. People always found a way to twist kindness into controversy. That evening, as the sun dipped below the ridge, a reporter from a national network arrived. She was elegant, polished, the kind who smelled opportunity. Miss Harris, she said smoothly, you've become a symbol of courage and compassion, but some people say these men are criminals, that you put your children at risk. How do you respond? The crowd quieted. Monica looked straight into the camera lens, her voice steady. I didn't see criminals that night. I saw cold human beings knocking on my door. Maybe the world needs less judgment and more warmth. For a moment, there was silence. Then the bikers erupted in cheers. The reporter, caught off guard, simply lowered her mic. Later that night, as fires crackled and music played softly across the field, Rex sat beside Monica on the porch. You know you changed things, right? He said. She smiled faintly. I didn't change anything. I just opened a door. Rex shook his head. You opened more than that. You opened hearts that had been closed for a long time. The stars shimmered above, cold and endless. Down below, the valley glowed with the warmth of engines, fire, and humanity. But somewhere, far from the laughter and lights, a shadow stirred, a man in a dark car watching from a distance. He made a call. Yeah, he said. She's the one. The angels are rallying around her. The higher-ups won't like this. Monica had no idea her simple act of kindness had sparked more than compassion. It had begun a movement, and with it, enemies. The sun rose on the third morning, casting an amber glow across the snow. What once was a quiet farmhouse had become a fortress of loyalty. Dozens of tents surrounded the property, the Hells Angels' red and white patches gleaming in the light. Coffee brewed in steel pots, music hummed low, and laughter echoed in the cold air. But beneath the calm, tension brewed. Rex had been pacing since dawn, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, I heard," he said grimly. "Tell the boys to stay sharp. No one moves alone tonight." He hung up and turned to Brick. "They're coming." Brick's expression darkened. "Who?" "The Iron Fangs, rival club from Denver. They saw the story, think we've gone soft. Said they'll ride out here to remind us who we are." Brick cursed under his breath. "They bring trouble, they'll regret it." But Monica overheard every word from the porch. Fear gripped her heart. "Rex, what does that mean? Are they dangerous?" He hesitated, then nodded. "They don't like what we're doing. Helping you makes us look human. They prefer the old ways, violence, fear." Monica's throat went dry. "Then go, please. I don't want anyone hurt because of me." Rex stepped closer, eyes hard but gentle. "You gave us shelter. We're not leaving you behind." She shook her head. "You don't owe me." "Yes, we do." By noon, scouts reported engines in the distance. Dozens, maybe more. The air grew tense, thick with dread and diesel fumes. Brick gathered his men in front of the house. "Listen up. We don't fire first. We protect the lady and her kids at all costs. If they want to test our brotherhood, they'll learn today what it means." Engines roared on the horizon. The Iron Fangs arrived, black jackets, steel masks, and cold eyes. They stopped at the end of the long dirt road, revving their bikes in unison, taunting. Monica stood on the porch, her children clinging to her sides. The whole world seemed to freeze between the two forces. The rival gang's leader, a bald man with a snake tattoo curling around his neck, shouted across the field. "So it's true. The mighty angels fixing up houses and baking pancakes now?" His men laughed. "Guess hell froze over." Brick stepped forward calmly, his voice thunderous. "You came to pick a fight, Fang, or you came to witness what respect looks like." The man sneered. "Respect? You're kneeling to some charity case." Before Brick could respond, Monica stepped down from the porch. Every biker's head turned. She walked through the snow, chin lifted, heart pounding, until she stood halfway between both sides. Her voice was steady. "You don't have to fight. No one does. You think helping someone makes you weak? It makes you human." The rival leader laughed cruelly. "Lady, this world doesn't care about kindness." Monica's voice rose. "Then maybe that's why it's broken." For a moment, silence fell. Then, one by one, the Hells Angels revved their engines, the sound rising like a thunderstorm. It wasn't aggression, it was unity, a declaration. The rival gang leader's smirk faltered. His men shifted uneasily. Brick shouted, "You heard the lady. We stand for her, for loyalty, for brotherhood." The roar that followed shook the valley. The Iron Fangs, realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched, turned their bikes around, engines snarling as they retreated down the road. Monica exhaled, her knees nearly buckling. Rex caught her before she fell. "You all right?" She nodded, trembling. "I thought it was over." He smiled softly. "No, Mum, it's just beginning." As the last of the black bikes disappeared over the horizon, the angels erupted in cheers. For the first time in her life, Monica felt something she'd never known before, protected. 3 days after the confrontation, peace settled over the valley once again. The snow had melted into glistening puddles, the wind softened, and Monica's small farmhouse stood taller and prouder than ever, its roof new, its porch strong, its heart fuller than she could have ever imagined. For the first time in years, the home felt alive. The laughter of her children echoed through the walls as the Hells Angels prepared to leave. Their engines rumbled softly, not with menace, but with affection. It was time to ride again, but something in all their faces said they would never forget her. Monica stood at the porch, bundled in a new leather jacket that Rex had given her. On the back, hand-stitched in silver thread, were the words "Angel of Fairview." When Rex handed it to her that morning, she had cried. "I can't wear this," she'd said through tears. I'm not one of you. Rex had smiled. You're better. You reminded us what being one of us should mean. Now, as the men loaded up, Brick approached her with a quiet dignity. His massive hand rested gently on her shoulder. You didn't just give us shelter, Monica. You gave us back something we'd forgotten, our soul. Her eyes glistened. You gave me something too. Hope. He nodded. Then we're even. From behind him, a few bikers rolled forward a covered trailer. This, Brick said, pulling off the tarp, is for you. Inside sat a brand new furnace, a generator, stacks of food and supplies for months. We took up a collection. Every chapter from here to Chicago chipped in. Monica's breath caught. I can't accept this. You already did, Rex said, smiling. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. Why me? I'm just nobody. Brick looked her in the eyes. That's the thing, Monica. The world changes because of nobodies who act like somebody should. As the engines began to fire up, a low rumble filled the air, steady, powerful, and alive. Dozens of neighbors who once kept their distance now gathered on the ridge, drawn by the sound. Reporters filmed. Children waved. Rex climbed onto his bike but didn't put on his helmet just yet. You ever need us, he said, handing her a silver coin engraved with the Hells Angels crest. You call this number. Any chapter. Anywhere. Monica turned the coin over in her hand. You mean that? With our lives. Then, with a unified roar, 1,500 engines thundered to life. Snow swirled in their wake like white fire as they rode off down the highway in perfect formation, their jackets flashing red and white against the blue morning sky. Monica stood there long after they disappeared, the rumble fading into memory. Her children ran to her side and she hugged them tight. What just happened, Mom? Lily asked softly. Monica smiled through her tears. We saw angels, baby. Real ones. Weeks later, the story continued to ripple across the nation. Journalists dubbed her the mother who melted the outlaws. Donations poured in from around the world. She used every cent to rebuild homes for single parents in her community, each one bearing a small plaque that read, Kindness needs no badge. One spring afternoon, a convoy of motorcycles returned quietly to the valley. They didn't come to fix or protect this time. They came to visit a friend. Rex stepped off his bike and placed a hand over his heart. Monica greeted them with her trademark smile, stronger than ever. Welcome home, boys. And as the engines idled beneath a golden sky, she realized something deep and everlasting. Her one act of compassion had not just saved lives. It had united worlds that were never meant to meet. And that was how legends are born.